a trial shot yesterday, and we know what is coming out. But there is always surprises in the market, as you know. So in this market of 25 minutes, we have to sell many products here. I think right from banana to honey to regulating the oil from Marico to fry it. And then finally, when Isaac comes in, the masala to be added and the product to be sold by Nitin in the non-conventional way by his e-ventures. So that is today, and I'm sure I'll be learning more than telling much to you. I think looking at the live session where a large number of other people may be listening, and I think it's very important that we recall the title of this session, which is Food Startup. I would have really liked it, food industry or food startups from the specific angle, but we have short of time. It is always important for us to recollect and never to forget the backward integration of food processing. And we saw the only country which has sustainable agriculture and the food never suffered in the whole of last year in the COVID market was India. Many advanced countries failed miserably in the food system, including the transport. So I think let us not always look at a bad side of things, but let us look at the advantages that India has. I think milk has taught us, the dairy sector, that no liter of milk in India travels more than 100 kilometers. And that's the sustainability aspect. So what is going to be sustainable for the startups in terms of transforming innovation, translating innovation, clustering them together and not leaving them to close up in a tsunami way after the startup? Our responsibility, our job, from heart and soul, it has to be put on the table for the youngsters to take over. I'm sure industry like Marico, everybody wants to be associated with it. Why? There is a success. But let me tell you, when Maliwala and others started it, it was a startup basically. Even when they started the oil industry, it was a startup. So it always looks very fascinating, enchanting, and lovable when we see success. So let's be assuring the youngsters who are all around in this session that you are in the right path, provided the following cautions are really taken. Number one, within the span of remaining 7 minutes, I would like to clearly lay the pathway for you to go forward. Number one is consider non-perishables as one sector. Do not mix perishables and non-perishable. I would like to say non-perishables like grains. Ultimately, it will perish. I'm talking about 1 day life, etc. Half a day life, 1 hour life. Spices and condiments fall into that category. It requires a little bit breathing time and possible to handle. But when you come to perishable, like fruits and vegetables, out of them, fruits are more perishable than vegetables. Fish, meat, and poultry. Poultry is not a major problem in terms of eggs. There is some keeping quality, but then the poultry as a meat is belonging to the highly perishable commodity. And of course, liquid dairy milk, etc., becomes a very high priority. Innovation in India in dairy sector was not sterilized milk, it was pasteurized milk. And pasteurization, was almost 150 years old. But India still does pasteurized milk because there is a tradition, wisdom, culture, and practice to boil milk at home. Maybe the next generation may not need it, but this generation still does. So therefore, vibrating food processing with culture is number one. Number two, it is also important on the backward integration innovation. There must be innovation in the middle to take it to the forward technology innovation. So there are 3 innovations here in the backward integration of agriculture, innovating the transport, innovating the harvest, innovating the clustering, etc. And that is a very important innovation, and that belongs to a larger sector. innovating itself in the processing is very important. And that's where forward technology looking innovation, which has got an edge. Therefore, it here, not everything can be new. It has to be delta and micro innovations that will throttle the game forward. And imagine an accelerator without a spring, you can't operate it. So many of our startups are in that situation. In doing so, it is very, very vital in terms of using the multiplicity of product. Just now I heard Mrs. Nanjapa speaking about multiplicity. Very true. The stability of startup is not in a single product, but a multiple product. From the government side, from the FICI advice and from the Ministry of Food Processing, how do we fund them? How do we handhold them? We need to maintain confidentiality. A startup requires a confidentiality. If confidentiality is missing, his file is on every table, he's no longer a startup, he's a closer. So they require that, like a bud, which is being really cared like a bird in the nest, and then move forward. In doing so, the co-products is a better way to move forward. It's a clustering of these startups. I don't think a single person can do everything. He can't. He need a clustering. So today's 2022, I'm talking, not 21 even. 2022 startups have to look at clustering among themselves and how individually they can use the byproducts and co-products, and how the main product make it a byproduct. That is the challenge that the startups have. How do you convert mango into a mango pulp into a byproduct or a co-product, and use the mango peel for beta carotene in the pharmaceuticals? That's 100 times more value addition. So this is where, in a small space, one can do a huge job. The last but one point I want to really mention is, in this clustering, there must be again a tapering in the marketing. So therefore, we are talking about the supply chain, which is the large funnel, then the innovation box, and then a large marketing, including the non-highway and what I call the Kirana way. May not be always the best way. The highway is loaded with big companies, and the Kirana way is not reliable. What is that other way? And that other way is the innovative way. And I think it's here. It is not necessary everything is computerized, everything is digitized, but there is also another market called village market in India. There are more than almost 2 million markets in the country. Have we capitalized that? Have we looked at it from a different angle? Have we made them advance into the system? And with that, I would wind up by telling, in the tomorrow startups, I think what is more important is to use very, very less water, very, very less energy if you want to be sustainable. And at the same time, link up with non-food startups, which have nothing to do with food, we think, like biology laboratories. There is tremendous amount of interaction that is needed between FT, biotechnology, BT, and IT. And tomorrow's job is health food with nutrition technology, NT. With that, I will probably withdraw at this point and hear it and come back later on. But what is important is, how do we cascade one into the other without eating away the profit of the other, but at the same time sustainable with the system, not only from the financial angle, but also from a satisfaction angle, from the soul and heart. If my product doesn't fill up my soul and heart with love, then I'm no longer a businessman. That's where I stop. And I'm sure the country is in a different hand now, and it's in a very, very mature situation. And I'm sure India has the best advantage in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Prakash. I think it's been fascinating listening to you. I think all the punch lines, the punch words, and the power of the point, as they say, instead of using PowerPoint, the power of the point. I think it's been fantastic listening to you, and I think you've covered you set the entire context in terms of the opportunity, technology, regulation, policy, financing. I think it takes so many things actually to make the tadka for this industry, what we call the food processing industry. And startups indeed have a great role to play here. So thank you so much for that. We'll of course come back to you, Dr. Prakash, in a while as well. Coming to Dr. Prabodh Halde, Prabodh, you've been, of course, a very old veteran in the food processing industry. You, of course, are the champion when it comes to regulatory affairs as well. But now, just to set the context in line of what Dr. Prakash said, of course, he talked of innovation. I think innovation happened even when the entire buffalo milk was converted into powder, which was something that everybody said can never happen, which is something which Dr. Kurian did 70 years back, and that was also a technological innovation, which actually sparked off a big
And
revolution called the
and that
fresh
was a
revolution.
technology from
CFTRI. Yes, I know
CFTRI.
that. I know that from the original CFTRI as well. Innovation, of course, is one very strong part of it. But to contextualize it now, Prabodhji, now that we've seen COVID over the last 1 year, and more than ever before, I think innovation is very contextual and very relevant today. So, from your experience, and you of course mentor a lot of startups, and that indeed is the topic of our discussion today as well, as to how startups can transform the food processing sector. What will be some of your observations, some of your advice in terms of the trends that you've seen over the last 12 months? Now that we've gone past maybe the large part of the pandemic, touch wood, let's hope things will get back to normal in the next 4 to 6 months. But having come this way, what are some of the trends that you've observed, and what is it that you will advise many of the startups who are part of this audience in the food processing sector? Prabodhji.
Nitinji, thank you. Respected Dr. Prakash, thank you for inviting me. Thank you to MOAPI and Fiki, my friend Abhinav, and all the other colleagues, those who are present. Dr. Prakash has said very important things. He said about innovation. I will just extend that, Nitinji. For the startup, innovate or evaporate. If you don't innovate, you will get evaporated. So, in next 2 minutes, I will show you based on my interaction with the startups from last 8 months in the pandemic and post-pandemic. What are the trends which are coming in next 2 to 3 years? I'm sharing my slides so people can take a photograph of this slide, and it will be easy for explanation. I hope my slide is visible. Nitinji, can you confirm it is visible or not?
Yes, very much visible.
Oh, great. I will go one by one. In this pandemic, we have learned that we have not gone to the hospital. And I always say the hospitals are sick care industry, not the healthcare industry. Healthcare is the food processing, nutraceutical, which is a part of the food processing. So the personalized nutrition is going to be a big business. People would go for personalized nutrition, so the personalized food. So the food which is a nutraceutical will be a good trend. Startup can think about this. Organic, natural, traditional, vegan, these trends are coming. These are the niche market, but yes, startup can play around and find out their target audience. E-platforms already is a success story. Exports, China's loss is India's win. And we found that so many startups from the South India, particularly if you see the ma'am is there, honey export has happened, the spices exports has happened, and startup can play a role in that. Home cooked food is going to be a big boom because now the market is opened up, but we have experienced closely 8 to 9 months home cooked food. So naturally when we go in hotel we would demand the home cooked food, and home cooked material which is required to cook in the hotel, that startup actually, that also the demand is going to be for the processed food. Safe food, now in this pandemic has taught us the GMP and GHP. Packaged food are the safest food. So we have to actually showcase that from MOAPI that processed food are not necessarily, that is old talk. Processing is 120 degrees Celsius and all. No, without diluting the quality norms and nutritional norms, we can process the food to maintain the quality and the nutritional capability of the food. So the processed food is a safe food. Plant-based meat, much talked. Green process, green process, safe process. These are the also some investors are very keen on that. Intermediate product, it is going to be a big market. Intermediate product means like if During this lockdown, I've learned how to cook at the YouTube. And naturally, you don't know how to cook completely, so you require some kind of sauces, intermediate products, cut vegetable. That market is growing. Packed versus loose, traditional foods, food equipment, lot of imports which used to come from China. Now it is going, India is going to be the big supplier of the equipment, and there is a good scope for food equipment in the food industry. Cloud kitchen, Ayurveda food. I would request Dr. Prakash to comment on this because he is the one who added 420 ayuceuticals as a part of the nutraceutical regulation schedule 4 in the FSSAI, and definitely that has added value. And Ayurveda food is going to be the big, actually the market in future, and we have seen that so much of kadhas and so much of golden milk which we have consumed, and Ayurveda food is going to rule. Functional food, nutraceutical, traditional way, high protein, multigrain, cereal, science, convenience food, ready to eat, immunity boosting food, mental health food, cut vegetable. So, in short, I just wanted to give that look around, find the problem, and try to resolve that problem. Startup should not go for esoteric research which is coming after 5 years. That is not the startup way. Startup way is directly where something is there and you have to ride on the wave. So, please see the wave, please see the market, please see the consumer, target the consumer, and go for it. There are some success factors and all. I will come back once I get the opportunity to speak. Thank you, Nitinji.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabodhji. Thank you so much for those words. And we'll, of course, come to Dr. Prakash for the 426 botanicals. We'll reserve that for about 10 minutes later. But thanks so much, Prabodhji. I think it makes great sense working from the market backwards. So instead of farm to fork, it is fork to farm, rather. And that is how startups are, of course, very agile compared to the larger companies, compared to multinational corporations. What makes startup unique is their agility and their nimbleness in being able to come up with something new and innovative. And you really highlighted really very well some of these mega trends that have come up in the wake of COVID and after the entire pandemic that has been going around. And some of the stuff that you spoke about and talked of in terms of product innovation, natural, traditional, minimally processed, the power of e-commerce networks. I think all of this actually makes great sense. So on this, let me come to Chaya. I think it will be unfair if we don't bring a startup.
Sir, Nitinji, one
Yes,
more important point
yes,
from
Prabodji.
MOAPI.
Yes,
I am saying that Ayurveda food, Ayush should be
Ayush.
part of the discussion,
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
startup
Absolutely,
in the Ayurvedical,
absolutely.
startup in the Ayurvedic. We should bring
Very correct.
Ayurveda, Ayush in the
Into the
startup
mainstream.
culture,
Into the mainstream. Yes, and we'll
and
come on that. We'll come to
that
that
will
point in a
get
while.
my farmers also double the income because it is from
Absolutely.
farmer.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll come to that point. I've reserved that point on your advice, Prabhuji. We'll come to Dr. Prakash on that. But it will be unfair at this stage not to have a startup in a seminar which is talking about startups. So let me right away bring in Dr. Mrs. Chaya. Chaya is a wonderful entrepreneur working on a lot of stuff which Prabhuji spoke about in terms of innovative technologies, new ways of packaging, taking not so mainstream products to the mainstream market. So Chayaji, my question to you is, I think this is very, very critical. It's the easier part is to innovate on the product side, come up with formulations, come up with packaging, come up with system process in your own backyard, in your own operations. But when it comes to accessing markets, and Dr. Prakash and Prabodhji also alluded to that, electronic marketplaces, digital platforms, e-commerce, a lot has been spoken about this. But what has been your experience? Do you think enough is being done? Do you think is there a missing gap or a link somewhere? How do you think startups are able to avail some of these platforms? What do you think needs to be done further to innovate on these fronts? And what needs to be done to make digital marketing and e-commerce platforms more enabling for startups so that they are able to translate their innovations from their factories and from their backend to the market? So your experiences, Chayaji, and any recommendations or suggestions from your side on this front. Over to you, Chayaji. Can you hear us, Chayaji? Chayaji, are you there? I think Abhinav, we've lost Chayaji. Maybe you can just give her a call. Meanwhile, I'll come to Dr. Uma. Chayaji, are you there? Just in case, I think her network is a little weak, as I can see.
Yeah, I think network looks weak at her end, but she's
Yeah.
there available.
Okay, maybe she can switch off her video and just speak. Maybe you can talk to her once over the phone. Meanwhile, I'll put a question. Yes. Meanwhile, I'll put a question to Dr. Uma. Dr. Uma, you of course are in the hot seat from the government side, because as of course the lady leading the charge as far as the Natural Research Center for Banana is considered down south in Tamil Nadu, you're doing a fabulous job. ICR has a fantastic system of crop specific, commodity specific, product specific research stations all over the country, CFTRI, CSIR labs. So there is a whole host of institutions which do a lot of good work. Would you shed some light on how is it that you bridge the gap and the link between the lab and the industry? Do you think enough is being done? Can you share some light on what innovations are happening? And how do you think we can further bridge this gap between the innovations that are available from the labs to actually translate into products and action on ground in the industry and in the market? Over to you, Dr. Uma.
Thank you very much, Dr. Puri. And I also thank the earlier speakers, Dr. Prakash, Dr. Prabodh, who spoke excellently and opened up the topic very well. I agree very much with Dr. Prakash, who talks about forward and backward linkages, wherein startups, fruit and vegetable, make an important sector, which many times either take a backstand when it comes with respect to pharma and other industries. We are the biggest producers, not producing not less. We are producing 280 million tons of fruits and vegetables. We are producing sometimes more than what is required in some fruits and vegetables. That's where we always say the processing is very much important in this sector, and need of more and more startups are very much relevant with respect to fruit and vegetable sector. Uh, Generally, well, I think lot many people will be watching this. I would rather say when it comes to processing means the first thing comes to their mind is only jam, jelly, puree, or ketchup, just these things. But they should know there are primary processing. What is primary processing? That means keeping a fruit even healthy with little extended shelf life is also a processing, with minimal process, with cleaning and washing and taking out the field heat. All these are minimum processing. When it comes to secondary processing, we talk about all these puree, ketchup, this and all these things. But right now the market is saturated with all these primary and secondary products. Now what we have to look, or the startups have to explore, is the tertiary markets. When we say it's a tertiary market, what is it? In a simple terms, we say like many fruits and vegetables, they go into processing. But the whatever we thought, they are the primary output, like juice and pulp as the primary product, like in case of mango or in case of citrus fruits. Juice used to be the primary product, but now juice has become the secondary product when we think about the skin or the base products, the seeds, which have the high value compounds. Then they become the primary products, whereas juice takes the second step. So people have to look at what are these kind of bioactive compounds, or what are the areas people can explore the markets and startups can pick up. Normally we say, for example, just to say, even mango, what Dr. Prakash simply said, pulp used to be the primary product. When it came to the seed, which contains very high quality fat and proteins, which has antioxidant and antimicrobial qualities, it becomes a high value product compared to pulp. And even mango skin, which is an excellent source of phenolic compounds, which has antimicrobial. These are the things which have to looked into. And simple thing I'm telling you, Indian banana industry is threatened by a disease called Panama wilt, which is a virulent strain called TR4. For the whole Panama wilt to manage, there is one particular bioactive compound called gallic acid. This is very highly available in onion, garlic, and even in in the hybrid of these two. What we call it as Jimmo, which is not right now. It's not available in India, but in very limited quantities is available. Even the simple leaf extract, it is a high. It can give you high amount of gallic acid, which can control the disease in the field. The question is how to convert this kind of information on the bioactive compounds, bring them into a delivery system and take it to the field and make it more and more commercial, which will have very high value, not
Correct.
necessarily in the domestic market. It will
Correct.
definitely pan, I mean, across the world, this product will take over. So similarly, grape seed also. Grape used to be grape pulp used to be, juice used to be the primary product, but now the grape seed has such high value because it inhibits lipid oxidation, then it is a source of phenol, then antimicrobial properties. Because of all these characters, I think these products have taken the in main stage. And many of the waste, like apple waste, you take tomato waste, and even carrot waste, whatever they have excellent cosmetic properties. They go into pharma or even in cosmetic industry. Simple, if you take banana, everybody knows eating banana as a fruit, but banana now fruit doesn't fetch much price, but the other products of fruits, even the anthocyanin from the floral bracts, even some varieties of banana, we call it ornamental bananas. Many people may not know this fact. These ornamental bananas with reddish leaf are the excellent source of anthocyanin. It can even outbeat the red cabbage, they say. It has 20 to 50 times higher than the cabbage. So these are the some important areas where people have to really look into that. The take-home message, what I generally say is I said primary and secondary markets are saturated. Tertiary market is the only way. Functional foods or the nutraceuticals or the fortified foods are to be looked into, if at all you think about startups. Now the question is how academia can help them or the research organizations can help them. When you say, I'll just take an example of a fruit itself, mango. If you look at commercial varieties which have very thin seeds, then the output, the high value compound or the high value product coming out of seed will be very less. Here, what you should do, you should look at the varieties beyond the commercial ones. You should look for the traditional varieties, look for the palm land races or the wild species which have thick seeds and where the seed output is more than and the value of the output is much more. So these are some of the things which I wanted to
Sure.
say, and there are plenty of plethora of fruits and vegetables and plethora of biomolecules or important compounds or the compounds with nutraceutical values. I think these are the things that startups have to really look into.
Sure.
Maybe later I'll come back. What are the things? How we can academia or institutes can bind with startups? How we can develop a synergy and work together.
Sure.
Thank you so
Sure.
much.
Thank you so much. In fact, some of you may know or may not know there is a dedicated institute organization called Agri Innovate within the ICR system, which has
Ah,
been
yes,
set up especially
exactly.
for this. Because as Madam Dr. Uma also said, whether it was the Panama instance that she was talking of for banana, whether it is about making pectin and oil out of the skin of the orange and that becomes the main product, and juice is essentially effectively then becoming the byproduct, etc. Lot of these innovative technologies are there in the lab, and there is a lot of interesting work which the ICR system is doing, including Madam's Institute and so many other institutes and Agri Innovate and others
Yes,
that
I
are
say a system of commercialization
yes,
under the
that
framework.
yes. So that's being
Yes.
done. That's being done in a good way. Of course, lots more to be done, and startups can greatly stand to benefit from that because
Yes.
they are much more agile to adopt new innovations. They are much better enabled to be able to experiment, and they are much faster when it comes to market access and taking pilots to full scale models compared to say maybe larger companies. So I think startups have this very wonderful opportunity to actually get into this space. Thank you, Dr. Uma. Chayaji,
Thank
are
you.
you back? Can you hear us?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. Thank you so much. Loud and
Yeah,
clear.
thank you, sir. Please.
Loud and clear. I think now you are the clearest amongst all of us.
Oh, really?
But when we lost you, we couldn't even hear you.
Yeah.
So the question I was asking you before you blanked out, of course, there has been a lot of discussion around regulation and innovation and technology and other things at the back end, bringing tradition, packaging, processing, etc., etc. But one of the most critical links is the market. Ultimately, you have to sell your product in the market, whether it is B2B or B2C. And
Can
now
you
there
be a bit louder, Nitinji? A bit louder. Last sentence.
so there is a lot of talk about lots of things, but the most critical element I believe is markets. How do you access markets as a startup? For example, you do a lot of work on honey and so many other products. Your product may be as good or sometimes maybe even better than many other larger brands perhaps as well, because you do a lot of hard work working with the farmers at the back end, working with tribals, perfecting the recipes, getting stuff made in small batches rather than in a large factory. A lot of artisanal value around that and a lot of care that goes into each and every batch, each and every product, each and every SKU. But when it comes to accessing markets, especially, there is a lot of halla gulla around digital markets, e-commerce, whether it's through B2B channels or B2C channels. What has been your experience, Chayaji, on some of the nice things and some of the not so nice things, and any suggestions, way forward advice you have for other startups, because you are one of the pioneers, as to how to access markets using digital technologies and e-commerce platforms? So we would love to hear from you on this, Chayaji.
Nitinji, namaste to everyone. My personal experience as a rural social women entrepreneur, supporting a lot of tribals and small farmers, what I have learned is my growth story and how I have sort of sustained it is all because of quality, quality, and quality. Today, many of us think of instant success. They don't value much of ethics in business or about quality. Today, if I have got brands like Spar, Walmart, ITC come over to this small scale social enterprise in a small village called Naguvanhalli in Mandya, I owe it to the quality of the brand. Today, if James like Imami are in constant touch and a humbling moment of having Britannia being in touch with us, I owe it again to our quality, consistent quality, meeting deadlines on time, and like I said, ethics in business. And how also we have been unique is that we have always had a benchmark of some of the best brands in the world, and we have, if not above them, we have been on par with their quality. In spite of my team, my entire production team being uneducated, today we have given them skill development to manufacture world class products. That's where my husband and me, I think, have stood out. For a Khadi and village industries backed enterprise, 20-year-old monopoly of foreign brands in India's five-star hotels, to be in the Taj, to be in the Hyatt, to be in the Hilton or Radisson, to support the small farmers with the replacement of honey, all the jams, mayonnaise, mustard sauce, and tomato sauce. I think we have stood out with our packaging too. We always feel our quality has to be backed with a fantastic packaging to look innovative and good, as well as to retain the quality that we have maintained. And we have given enormous importance for quality right from the procurement level. And for a unit like ours, a social enterprise, like I say, in rural Bharat, if we have gone through the process audit of Intertech and the social ethical audit of TUV Germany with a whole lot of uneducated team, well, I think anything is possible, is what I feel. A journey that started with honey. Today, we support close to 500 tribals and a large number of farmers procuring their fruits for our jams. And as an additional source of income, we made them grow chia seeds. I think currently we are one of the largest sellers of chia seeds in the country. And then from there, grow to, take the next step to coffee without chicory. We stressed on health and wellness related products. I think that's the goodwill that today made us grow during COVID. What I really feel where we lack is that the R&D institutes in the country should literally have a close somewhere interaction with those from the industry to come out with, I would say, feasible technology transfers. It is very sad that currently, for us to support even furthermore farmers, for a sugar-free jam, we are looking at bringing technology from Israel. It's very sad with so many R&D institutes in the country. We don't even have a technology transfer for a sugar-free jam. Currently, we manufacture jam without preservative, color or flavor, but we are looking for something without sugar. We are now in touch with Australia and Israel for that. And it is even furthermore it's saddening as we speak of Atmanirbhar Bharat, even for a test as C3, C4, C13, or the test that we require in antibiotics, we have to depend on Intertech Germany. If we have to shell out something around 1,22,000 for a lab test for honey or for any other products, 1,22,000 a batch, is it feasible for us? This is where I think the gap is a lot. And my request to our countries, the finest R&D institutes we do have, but at least let it be something that is going to be of some help to those from the industry. In return, we can support numerous farmers, tribals, and play a vital role in stopping the migration of rural folk to cities.
Thank you, Chayaji. We can sense the passion, and we appreciate your passion and your hard work. And we also sense and appreciate the challenges that you have mentioned. Of course, everything is not perfect. Lots of things need to be ironed out. The simple instance of the test results that you gave, I think that is something very simple and something very basic to developing the industry and helping it become world class and to go global. I think that's critical. But the question, madam, which I also would like to seek just 1 minute reply from you on the market side. One is, of course, you say you have the linkages in terms of B2B linkages and you're supplying your products. How about taking your products as labels or brands to the mainstream market and consumer? And how about using the mainstream e-commerce channels? Do you think the space there is good enough, amenable enough? What have been some of your experiences whenever you've taken your brands of your farmers or labels of your farmers to the market through some of these mainstream marketing channels and e-commerce channels? Any experiences on that? I think we've lost her again. Okay, no problem.
Yeah, looks like so.
We'll bring you in, Dr. Prakash. I think we need to close the loop on the 426 botanicals and the Ayurvedic Ahara transitioning into food, which Prabodji was also mentioning. Given COVID and everything else, and since there are so many startups here who will also be motivated to do a lot of work, please, your words of advice and guidance on the Ayurveda piece and how to mainstream this into the Indian food industry. Dr. Prakash.
See, I would take where Prabhu and Chaya left, and with your comments, I would look at there is a wave called a huge Ayurveda. Right? That's a lifestyle. It has nothing to do till I of hey, how would Ayurveda you keeping quiet? In fact, every food is an Ayurvedic food in India. And if you see on herbaceuticals, the way towards nutraceuticals, which I wrote exactly 1 year back, the idea is to pitch in the basics of Ayurveda, to look at manufacturing foods from traditional Indian medicine to traditional Indian foods and how these herbals are made together. It is a rasayana in Ayurveda, but it is a juice here. In the MOFPI words or in the scientist words, it is a juice. But basically it is a rasayana. And I agree with Chaya Devi in terms of the wonderful way we should look at the advantage of India. I would say advantage India is the unfettered way of collaboration. Today, I don't know how the research institute, because it's almost 12 years since I'm not there in a research institute, but there is an entrepreneurial wave that is growing on. And I would still say people like FICCI, people like SIFTI must empower themselves in analysis. Why? The analysis is not that of metal, not that of anything. It is the complete herbal analysis which we lack. So therefore, when you look at Ayurvedic foods, which is going to be much more traditional foods, I would certainly say the mantra is going to be authentic traditional food cocktail. Ghee is bad is the market today. Ghee is bad, don't eat it. But what if one of you, maybe Mrs. Nanjappa or Sakshi or Isaac or even Puri, would say ghee reduces cholesterol? Immediately a proof is required, right? Immediately a proof. Everybody will jump on it. Therefore, a lot more risk solve that riddle. There is a statement in the Ayurvedic texts of Charaka Samhita, Sushruta Samhita, and but today the Ayurvedic treatment for reducing cholesterol is making you drink half a liter of ghee. What is that ghee? The it and that's where I will stop by telling. Today, the license is given for 426 herbaceuticals to use in your food products. You don't have to go back to FSSAI and say, I'm making this product, give me permission. Not necessary. It is already linked. But I tell you, I can't believe sometimes what is happening. That 426 may migrate to drugs anytime. I just don't know. I brought it from drugs to food. And sometimes it can go back because certain vested interests may be interested in taking it back to the drugs. And therefore, when the sun is shining very bright, we should make use of it. And once we establish this in the food industry, it's very difficult to take it back. So therefore, unused situation should not be allowed. And as much of it has to be used. And I want to comment one point to Mrs. Nanjappa on the availability of sugar-free situation. Basically, most of the sugar-free systems are heat labile. That's one major problem that we have. But certainly, that the market I feel today is the glycemic foods business. Okay. We require foods which are traditional foods, which are traditional cocktail, which can make a food into hypoglycemic. So we are looking at foods at 38, 40 glycemic index, and it's not ragi is going to be beating diabetes. Ragi is going to delay the onset of the peak of glucose. But we isolate that carbohydrate from it and gelatinize and use it in other products is the trick today. So I think there is a lot of discussion that need to take place like this. Not necessarily structured, it can be unstructured. Maybe Nitin can take lead in that. Maybe an unstructured discussion. And that's something which is very, very vital. Then it becomes structured. We share our knowledge. Nothing to take back further in life. It's only time to give, time to give. And people like Mrs. Nanjappa and others who are here must really organize this thinking process. And here we are to share what we know and what we know. Halde joined just now. This is the book I was telling about, Ayurveda converted into herbaceuticals for value addition to nutraceuticals. And this was written 1 year back. 7 days, all copies sold.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So 8,000 copies gone in 7 days, but all the money went into the Farmers Association, orphanages, and old age home. Not even a paisa. So why I'm telling this is market needs it. Go ahead. I think I'll come back later on at the end of the talk. Please go ahead.
Wonderful, Dr. Prakash. I think what you rightly mentioned about transitioning from tradition to science and then from science to the market. I think that's the bridge which these startups can very easily pick up. And with veterans like you, with guides like you, with institutions like Dr. Uma around us, with enterprising innovators and startups like Shayaji all around, I think there is so much of inspiration. I'm sure a lot more is going to happen in the Indian startup industry in the food.
Just for one point, Uma said about banana, and Chaya said about honey. In Ayurveda, there is a rule. You cannot eat banana without dipping in honey. Do you know that?
Correct.
You are not allowed to eat a banana without dipping in honey.
Correct.
There is so much of nutraceuticals in honey and there is so much of nutraceuticals in banana. A combination of two is not 1 and 1, 2, 1 and 1, 11.
That's where science comes in, sir.
That's where science comes in. That's where traditional knowledge should be converted to science, and that science should be converted to marketing, and that marketing has to bring back finance to the startup. Finance, startups cannot be charity. Sorry.
Yes, absolutely.
Charity is opportunity. Cash it. If finance is missing, so an apple cider a day for Chaya keeps the doctor away. I can tell you. But a banana a day keeps the diseases away. Okay? But
Correct.
imagine combination of apple cider and banana. Neither the doctor nor the disease can come near you. So what are you? A healthy, nutritious food for a healthy person with boosting immunity. A banana boosts immunity by 3 times. Boosting immunity, and that's where you are. You can fight COVID-19, COVID-20, COVID-21, you name it, you will fight. So that's
Wonderful.
India fighting spirit. Okay?
Wonderful, Dr. Prakash,
Great,
and
great.
your
Thank you.
fighting
Very good, sir, doctor. Very good.
your fighting spirit is, I think, the fighting spirit of all of us put together and square of that.
Great.
So
Please go
much.
ahead.
Thank you so
Please
much.
go ahead.
Dr.
Thank you.
Prakash, sir, I was hearing you. I was only on the mute and stop my video because I don't want to
Yes,
actually block the
correct.
Right,
bandwidth.
right.
So, Prabodji, I'll now come to you. Since now you have switched on, I'll come to you. Since a lot of inspiring words have been given by Dr. Prakashji also for the startups, some words from you, guidance from you, Prabodji, because you have been informally as well as formally guiding, mentoring a lot of startups, and you understand the food space, including processing, the value chain, supply chain, innovation. You understand regulations. So, what will be some of your 4 or 5 of your experiences of what are the key success factors and what it takes to be a success in the food industry for a startup? Prabodji.
Thank you, Nitinji. And I'm supporting startup from last 5 years when it inception of the startup as a concept and supporting the medium and small scale. Some key success factor which I believe which are taking the startup a successful startup. Sir, as per the some statistics, only 33% or odd 30% startups are surviving, and 60% are, as Dr. Prakash said, they are closing down. Unfortunate, but yes, that is truth, and it's called the value of the death. Value of death, which is in the phase one of the startup, in the step one of the startup. Most of the 60% of that 67 get shut. Some success factor what I have seen, and from the failure, these are the things which I brought from the failure of the startups, what has actually failed. I think as a startup, first you have to see the innovation, because ma'am has very rightly said, Dr. Uma, that academia and industry together, big industry can afford to have a own R&D, but small startup you need to go of the food technology institutes or the government institutes or the ministries research station or CFTR or anybody. We have to walk towards them because you are in need of R&D. You need to do some R&D, so please go close to your food technology college nearby. Second thing, operation and coordination, what startup needs to understand earlier. When the startup is there, he's from the gatekeeper to the chairman, so actually the person will do all the activities. But now after the COVID, what we learned, if you are a bowler you need to ball, if you are a batsman you need to bat. In the startup, preserve your energy, strengthen your strength, and do not work on your weaknesses only, because if you start working on your weaknesses, if you are not good in marketing, you will never be good at marketing. So synergize. So if you are a brand, you better do the marketing, let somebody produce for you, don't try to put a factory for you, because there are surplus uh, actually spaces available, production available in India. If you are good in manufacturing, do not try to put your own brand just to compete with somebody. It is very, very important, Prakash sir. I have seen the some startup earn money in the manufacturing, then suddenly in one day they become, I also want to launch the product in the brand and put 10 crore in the brand building. It is not easy. So startup is something which is on the web and you do what you like. So improve your strength. If Sachin Tendulkar is there, he should focus on his batting. Then coordination and cooperation, I think this is the going to be way forward. So if you are good at one part, you find out your buddy, some friend and some startup who will do some other part, and together you can do 1 plus 1 11, what actually Prakash ji has said. Financial controls are very, very important post COVID. Liquid cash is so important. So do not go into the capital expenses unless it is necessary. So try to avoid all the capital expenses and all the fixed assets what you are going to buy. Delay that decision for a year if not, but do not expense month. Last thing, traditional and Ayurveda is going to be the big future. Whenever you are looking at the startup, look at those sectors and try to resolve the need of the your target audience, and do not copy the success of somebody's startup because you don't know the story complete. We only get the success stories. We get hooked. Oh wow, he's successful in the.
We lost you. We're not able to hear you. Prabhuji, are you there?
Dr. Prabodh, we can't hear you.
I think Prabhuji has a bad connection. No problem.
Yeah.
Let's come to Dr. Uma. So I think Dr. Uma, from what Chayaji was mentioning before we lost her away, I think she was a little disillusioned and demotivated about certain technologies, certain expertise not being there in the country, and it takes efforts, time, and cost to actually avail of some of those services and some of those products and some of those technologies. Sorry, Prabhuji. Yes, I was going to Dr. Uma. Prabhuji, you can complete, then I'll come to Dr. Uma.
No, what I was saying, mentorship is very important. Having a mentor, like if you have a sakha like Krishna, Arjuna had sailed through. So in
Correct.
startup, you need to have some mentor. Find out a mentor, not only necessary one mentor, but one or two mentors, and they can play a so important role. And mentorship is not a professional commercial relation. Mentorship is beyond the commercial. It is like a guru. And I'm telling you, those who are successful startup, they have found their own mentor, and mentor is something you need to find out in your life. So startup mentorship program. So I request Fiki and MOAPI, we should have some kind of formal mentorship program. We have to train the mentor also, and also to encourage mentors to, because if they cannot do the startup, like Nitin ji, you are a mentor. You may not have done your own business, but you have motivated, help hundreds of the startups. Same with Abhinav. He might not have done any startup, but there should be some Achrekar Guruji to train the Sachin Tendulkar. Achrekar Guruji never played any cricket in the test match, but he made the Sachin Tendulkar. So we need to help startup to start. We may not have started our own, but
Correct.
mentor is very, very important. Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Prabhuji. Guru, that is our tradition as well. Guru के बिना कुछ भी नहीं होता है. So having a good guru is of course very, very important. Thanks very much for that. And of course, any of you in the audience wants to reach out to any of us, Prabhuji of course is available. Any of us is also available anytime for any of you. Thank you. So Dr. Umaji, I was coming to the question about research, technology, innovation, taking technologies from the lab to the market. And while a lot of good work has been done, both in the private sector and in the government space, whether CSIR, ICAR system, CFTRI system, but still there seem to be some gaps. So what would your advice or what would your words be to some of these startups who are in the early stages of their business? And so that like Chayaji was getting a little disillusioned and little disappointed, what would your words of advice and guidance be to them on this front?
No, as rightly said, who said Dr. Prabodh, he said these startups should look for the technology from the academia. The close link between academia and the startup should be the starting point. They may start with as an entrepreneur, and then they may also go as a startup person. The thing is, uh, the requirement of a single platform to guide these startups is very, very essential these days. See, the startups are there, the kind of investment is required, the kind of support required, and which organization to look for this kind of financial support. The startups may not have all this information. There should be in the ministry or somewhere, there should be a single window system. Anybody wants to have any information, they simply go to that single window, ask for that, and they should be the person should be channelizing startups or anybody. They should be channelized where to go, what is your capacity, what is your potential, and what you are looking for, and this is your funding agency, and this is your mentor, this is your um academia which is going to support. So this kind of even academia where the R&D is going on and where they should reach, which institute to reach, all these should be made available. And at the same time, the advantage of research institutions like ICR, even academia, is that they have access to a large number of genotypes, large number of traditional varieties and land races which we have never exploited for the kind of active compounds, biomolecules, nutraceutical values, all these we have never accessed. What we are looking at the commercial varieties which may not have the extent of value which the traditional varieties have. Where this basic material or the planting material or anything is available with them, so research becomes easy. getting information from the institutions is easy. So institutions and academia become the storehouse of information, and this in free flow of information must be available, or at least there should be a common platform to discuss. Okay, I have these technologies. Who are the person who are interested? The startups also should know. Okay, this is the information I want to work on. If somebody want to work on
Sure.
low glycemic bananas, or information on low glycemic bananas, see, this is where they have to come to us.
Sure.
So this kind of common platform should be a very necessity thing right now for everybody to come together and share our information, so that everybody gets benefited. Put every
Thank you.
information in the common basket. Take what you want from the basket. That is
Thank
required.
you. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Uma. That's very valuable indeed. We have an interesting question from an entrepreneur and a startup who is asking what is the scope of the oleoresin markets in India, and he wants to establish himself as a player. Can you please guide me? So maybe Dr. Prakash, and of course after that Dr. Prabodh or Dr. Uma as well. You may want to chip in as well. Dr. Prakash, words of advice on oleoresin market?
Yeah. Oleoresin is a very old market, basically. It's not new, it's, new things are happening. But I think today, one big impact that I can see the role of oleoresins in the Ayurvedic products, because the raw material is not grown systematically like tea. We have tea gardens, but we don't have a Tinospora cardiifolia garden. So therefore, the demand for the raw material in Ayurveda, which is used in food processing, is becoming more and more, and therefore the bioactive molecules which are in the oleoresins will play a major role tomorrow. That is where the futuristic view of the regulation that I did. We have even allowed the bioactives from oleoresins and essential oils to be used in food, and that is one of those 426. So there has been a lot of forward thinking there in terms of novel processing, such as oleoresins, essential oil extraction, azeotropic extraction, water extraction with a solvent, etc. So therefore, there is nothing like oleoresin is beaten up, and you don't have to worry about it. It's a fantastic situation, but you need to go back into the traditional way and look at it and make sure the bioactives are extracted properly by slightly calibrating the oleoresin preparation and not wholly changing it. What I call it incremental innovation in oleoresin to give us the Ayurvedic flavor of molecules that are there, and then sharpen it with a razor called delta incremental innovation of oleoresin production to enrich that fraction. Because Ayurveda is a holistic approach. And you can't isolate a molecule and say, I'm putting back turmeric by putting curcumin. That is not agreeable. So therefore, there is a lot of potential, but you need to look backward integration, get the right variety, and the advantage is volume business, space business, right? Instead of having 5 tons of turmeric stored in your backyard, you only need half a liter of that to be stored in your lab for a product. Imagine the space saved. Space is energy today, right? So I think there's a tremendous potential, provided you look from this angle. Is one of the angle, but the others may have different angles. But I see a huge impact, huge impact. A drop of oleoresin of pepper in your rasam or in your sambar, in your curry, is all what is required after dilution, like homeopathy 1:100. Unbelievable potential. Who has exploited it? Not many, not many. So I think we need to have more informal discussions on such topic. Like just get onto Skype and talk for 10 minutes. And anybody who is an academician, when a question is asked to me, why you didn't become an industrialist, you have so much of brain. I said, that's not what I enjoy. I enjoy to be a scientist throughout my life. That's my enjoyment. Allow me to enjoy. So that's where it is. Yeah, thank you.
As Prabodhji said, Lata Mangeshkar is Lata Mangeshkar and Sachin Tendulkar is Sachin Tendulkar. So each one has a role to play, and you can't
Right.
cross. You can't cross.
No, you can't cross. Right, right.
Yes, yes. Prabodhji, any words from you on oleoresins?
No, I think, sir, Dr. Prakash has said. I have one thing. If you see the EPIDA data for last 6 7 months, how much we have exported, oleoresins has a good export market. But look at your heavy metal and the contaminants and the pesticides also. So the testing part, some earlier speaker also has mentioned. But finally, the consumer is the king, and if they want your test reports, you have to comply. So the quality, and quality. So oleoresins, one of the factor is about the heavy metals and the pesticides. So please be aware about the quality norms if you are exporting, because once the consignment reaches out to the shore, and if something is goes wrong, not only they will deduct the money, but they will also put blame on you of disposing charges. So which is a huge cost. So please,
Correct.
that is you need to be conscious about it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think this has been a fascinating discussion last 1 hour. I'll just chip in with 1 or 2 minutes from my side, and I'll also request the esteemed panelists to give their concluding remarks. I think when you talk of innovation for startups in the food sector, it's not just restricted to food processing. I think we said that in the beginning as well. There is so much happening in market tech. There is so much happening in supply chain tech. There is so much happening in quality check, rapid testing kits, innovative ways to have consumer interfaces for quality. There is so much happening on fintech. Of course, financing is one part of it, but fintech is all about engaging with suppliers, customers, and having robust systems so as to engage on cash flows. Food technology may not be seen from the narrow prism for startups only to engage in food processing per se, but beyond food processing and the technology behind it, there is so much else that is there to the food space, and there is so much that is happening in the food space. And with the kind of disruptions which Prabodhji also alluded to in the beginning in the marketplace post COVID, a lot of the opportunities which he gave on his slide, I think each of the maybe 20 22 points that he gave is actually a case for at least 10 or 15 startups each. You can actually have 400 500 startups across food tech, supply chain tech, fintech, market tech, quality tech operating in the food space, and the opportunity is big. You're talking of a market which is consuming 500 $600 billion worth of food every year. And a large part of that, of course, is still getting organized. Large part of the supply chains, value chains, system processes are still
Can you
unorganized.
be louder, Nitinji?
Yes, are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So what I was trying to say is, let us not see it from the narrow prism of only food processing technology. There is so much more that can be done on farm tech, on fintech, on supply chain tech, on quality tech, and each of these is a business opportunity in itself. And of course, there is lots of collaboration that can be done between the government institutions. We just heard from Dr. Uma. We have fantastic officers like her who are actually very proactive and willing to come forward and talk and guide and mentor and collaborate. And I think these are some of the things which have been really very positive, especially last 3 to 4 years. We've seen a lot of positive action on this. In fact, I was surprised in FSSAI some 3 years or 2 or 3 years back. They had a concept of very close to what Prabodhji and Umaji were also saying. They had the concept of buddy. So buddy means a person who was designated as an officer in FSSAI, that if a startup is coming to the organization with a certain pain point or challenge or opportunity and wants to get help on that, one officer would be appointed for 6 months to assist that person with A to Z of everything with regard to whether of FSSAI licensing or even any other guidance needed from the industry for that particular startup. So I think the government also now very, very good officers and very, very enterprising officers who are more than willing and proactive and willing to come on board to guide and mentor. And I think that is something that is really very fascinating. And startups, of course, cannot flourish on their own. You need financial institutions, you need the government, you need the entire ecosystem as well along. So I think the time is ripe, and with the kind of great people that you see on our panel today, with the kind of people in the industry who are ready to extend a helping hand, with proactive support from the government, with a lot of innovation happening on in the entire ecosystem, I think the time is simply ripe, and there are more opportunities and actually lesser people. So I would really urge startups to innovate and to do their best, and all of us are, of course, always there to extend any help from our side. Any closing remarks from your side, Prabodhji, Prakashji, Dr. Uma, before we close?
Nitinji, I would say actually the work of IFFT Tanjavur, NISTM,
Yes,
CFTRI,
yes, yes.
ICT. I think these institutes have in last few years, particularly, they are really supporting startup. I have been part of these
Absolutely.
institutes. I would like, if they are watching this, so I'm saying thank you to the ministry. I think the institutes are doing great job. There
Correct.
are some problems of the because patenting and then the knowledge management, then the because the whole aspect of the professor is to publish the paper,
Correct.
and then
Correct.
once till the time you publish the paper you cannot disclose. Startup required some data. I think this can be worked out, but I think the amazing work which these institutes are doing, I think I congratulate all the professors. We have to own up the startup. I think that culture can start.
Sure.
Closing remark, we are excited and any work in this forum. If Abhinav, if you have anything, you can make a buddy system. We are ready to support and whatever is the help which from our end. But looking forward a great opportunity for 2021 and 2022 for the food processing. Nitinji.
So thank you. Dr. Uma, closing remarks from you.
Yes, one thing I wanted to share is that people should know ICR institutes are supported by agribusiness incubation centers. Each
Correct.
institute has this kind of ABI where
Correct.
we try to support the entrepreneurs, and eventually, if they want to develop, have a startup, we are there to help them. So people should be
Wonderful.
aware of it, and they can come
Wonderful.
forward and reach out to ICR institutes, and we are there to help them.
Wonderful.
And thank you
Wonderful.
very much. This is what I
Thank
wanted
you.
to say.
Thank you. I
Yes.
think ICR, NABARD has a lot of good stuff. A lot of institutions in the government space are actually doing very good stuff on this. Thank you so much, Dr. Uma. Last but not the least, Dr. Prakash, final words from you, closing comments, and inspiring words from you. Dr. Prakash.
I think I said what all I had to say, but I think take home words and take. The doggy bag you carry from the hotel, that extra food, is going to serve you your lunch tomorrow. So I think it's very important. Number one, there is 1 billion kitchen in this country. And there is an innovator called a chef there. Can be your wife, can be myself, can be Abhinav, can be anybody.
Correct.
We need support from innovative products in that kitchen.
Correct.
It can be from a garlic paste as simple as that, all the way down to a ready-made sauce. But all of them should have a grandmother's touch, GMT. Otherwise, the chef will not be able to manufacture what he wants. So please remember, there is a live food processing in the kitchen. This is a package.
Correct. Correct.
Happens every kitchen.
Correct.
They use on an average 20 different products. Look at the market size.
Correct.
Where is the shortage? Market is very big. Even if 20,000 startups take up every day, it takes 1 year to fill up that market. So huge, so huge. So let us not forget that. And that's very, very important. For catering, it will be bulk. And for large establishment like whether Indigo or Air India or any kitchen, it will be bulk, obviously. So there is both markets of retail and bulk. My second last point in terms of telling is forward-looking innovation for marketing. Market innovation, it cannot be ignored at all. And forward-looking innovation, marketing, backward-looking innovation in the procurement of material. It's very, very important to sort out that, because when your product becomes a success, you have no raw material. Many have close-ups because of that. So sustainable backward integration is something that I want you to remember, startups, without any hesitation. Make sure that linkage is established. If you are not good, get somebody else or startup to do that job. So 3 startups can join together as one startup. Everybody cannot do alone. Lastly, you have to be taking risk. Not any one of us said it earlier. If the startups think that everything is ready-made, Dr. Prakash will tell me which product I have to make, I will make. No, you have to take risk. But in India, when you take risk, as Dr. Mashelkar many times said, you are punished when you take risk. But no longer that is true now, because if you take risk, you get dividends today. So you take risk calculatively, but don't sink your money. If you are a startup, borrow money from the bank, then you will work 24 hours a day. If you put your own father-in-law's money, you will work only 8 hours a day. Okay, so please borrow money on your own, on your name, and that's it. You're going to make it. If you get easy money, you will not make it. So be accountable for yourself, responsible for yourself, and I think you will thrive hard. And
Thank you.
that will be the success. MOFPI is a success. FICI is a success. SIFTI is a success. All this is success because somebody took risk at some time. And they have got an allocated budget from each one of them. And that's how we all work. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think it's important to take that risk. Financial risk is dangerous, but innovation risk is not dangerous. It will pay in the long run. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Prakash ji, Prabodh ji, Dr. Uma ji, and thank you so much to Abhinav, Aman, and the Sakshi and the entire team from FICI. I think it's been a good journey. Last 1 hour and 10 minutes, 15 minutes rather. We will look forward to continuing this association, and of course, all of us who are there in this panel are part of the ecosystem of mentoring, guiding startups. Anybody who would like to reach out to any of us, more than welcome. You can reach out to Abhinav, and he'll direct you to us. Thank you so much. Over to you, Abhinav.
Thank you so much, Mr. Puri, for being with us and for sharing a wonderful session today. And it was so heartening to hear Dr. Prakash. I mean, the kind of thought you have just passed on, I think it must be very, very insightful, valuable for the startup. And as a follow-up, I think I propose maybe under your guidance, we should have a follow-up call sometime down the line, maybe next week, where we can formalize something and with support from Ministry of Food Processing Industry and FICCI together, we may create a cell where we can do some nurturing for the startups and think what are the gaps there at the moment and how we can fill those gaps by having some startups also. And also, as Dr. Uma said, I mean, they have incubation sector. So how we can do that at a large level and try to create a structure which is helpful for all the stakeholders. And Dr. Prakash, I'm definitely going to bother you very soon on this.
Sure. But we have to get serious startups,
Absolutely.
not, I call it hawker startups are not okay. They just, enter a shop and you want to buy something because it looks good. That will be dangerous. You need serious startups, very serious. Already some homework done, they have some problems. I think that's where we will succeed.
Sir,
We will
do
definitely succeed. So serious startups is the agenda. That's good. Wonderful.
so much. At the end, I would like to thank Ministry of Food Processing and Industry once again for giving all this opportunity, giving FICCI an
Bye
opportunity.
then. All the best.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
We
Bye-bye.
are getting cut off on the video.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sir. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us once again. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Prabodh.
Bye, Abhinav.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for coordinating so well, both Puri and Abhinav. Wonderful. And thanks for Uma and Bodh and Chaya.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Missed Isaac. So the spice is missing in the dish. So
Thank you, Abhinav. Thank you, Prakash ji. Thank you.
thank you. Namaskar.
Namaskar, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.